We know that all of us are under lockdown situation for the last 40 days. And I could say, as far as the chartered accounts are concerned, these 40 days will be a memorable one, because after qualifying the CA exam, I'm sure that nobody has got this much of time and opportunity to spend with the family like an obedient school child, by helping the family members, and at the same time devoting majority of our time on studying and updating various subjects through online classes and webinars like this without any official tension. Friends, all we know, all we should have to salute our ICA President CA Atul Gupta sir for his such a wonderful leadership quality in this lockdown period, where he, along with all the regional councils and branches, transformed ICA into a new digital world, making everybody comfortable with the digital world by experiencing high-end programs and training through the digital platform. I know that in the initial 14 days of lockdown situation, we have experienced n number of webinars from different branches of ICI, and we, the managing committee, also decided to have this type of webinar after 14th April, which is the first phase of lockdown period, so that there should not be any overlap on the good quality webinar of different branches. Due to this overlapping of quality webinar, subsequently, ICA has made a guideline for conducting webinars by branches, whereby the branch requires approval from the ICA for conducting this type of program. Even though we have tried many times during the past, due to the lack of adequate slot at ICA level, we could not conduct a webinar till now. But today, in this historic moment of Kannur branch, we have got an eminent, ever-smiling, dedicated, highly knowledgeable, young and vibrant secretary of SARC of ICI, Sri Abhishek Murali sir from Chennai, as our speaker and chief guest of this session on direct tax Vivad Se Vishwas Scheme 2020. On behalf of all present here, I am extending a warm welcome to you, sir, on to Kannur branch of SARC of ICA.
Thank you. Thank you.
Once again, I am welcome all of you to this session, and I am not taking much of your time. But before that, I am inviting Sri Reji, the Vice Chairman of Kannur branch, for the formal introduction of our faculty to the viewers. Thank you. Thank you very much. Mute. Reji, mute.
Very respected Chairman C.A. Jayaprakash, and very respected faculty of the current session, Dr. C.A. Abhishek Murali, managing committee members, my dear fellow members in the profession, and dear friends. It's my pleasure and privilege to introduce before you the very vibrant and young chartered accountant. As the Chairman rightly said, the ever-smiling chartered accountant C.A. Abhishek Murali to all of you. In fact, his biodata runs to 6 pages. So with your permission, I am reading only the very most important part only, with your permission. And Dr. C.A. Abhishek Murali is a practicing chartered accountant at Chennai, who is currently the partner of Mrs. Victor Grayson Company Chartered Accountants, and also the secretary of SARC of ICA for the year 2020-21. He is also an All India first rank holder in the CIMA strategy examinations held in, and an All India 17th rank in CIMA final examinations. He also secured the All India 5th rank in the international taxation examinations conducted by CIOT. Dr. C.A. Abhishek Murali is the youngest elected regional council member of the SARC of ICI by securing the highest number of votes from Tamil Nadu. He has the honor of being the youngest elected secretary of the SARC of ICAI. He is an expert in direct taxation, international taxation, litigation and appeals, valuations, due diligence, etc. Dr. C. Abhishek Murali has conducted and spoken at more than 250 seminars on direct taxes in the year 2019 alone. He has held various positions in the various committees formed by the Institute of Chartered Accountants of India, New Delhi. It includes the Corporate Law and Corporate Governance Committee of ICAI, Professional Development Committee of ICAI, Research Committee of ICAI. He has also been nominated as the chairman of the following committees constituted by the SARC of ICAI. The chairman of Committee on Capital Markets and Investors Protection, Direct Access Committee of SARC, Public Relations Committee of SARC, TB Committee of SARC, Library Committee, Career Counseling Committee, Committee on Capacity Building of CFMs and SMBs of SARC, etc. And he authored 5 books of professional interest. His books on overview of the Companies Act 2013 is well received in the corporate circle. His book Income Tax Ready Reference is extensively used by professionals and government officials alike. His book Taxation on Capital Gains is under print. He has authored background material for investors awareness or reference published by the Institute of Chartered Accountants of India, New Delhi. Dr. C. Abhishek Murali regularly contributes articles of professional interest in the online magazine Taxudra. His other positions held in other organizations include Executive Committee member of the Hindustan Chamber of Commerce, co-chairman of the Direct Tax Committee of the Hindustan Chamber of Commerce, technical reviewer for the Shield Panel for ICAI Awards, secretary of the All India Taxpayers Association, member of the Institute of Internal Auditors, an active coordinator of the NGO organization DBAM. C. Abhishek Murali is the committee member of the Gymkhana Club of Gymkhana Club Library Committee, and he is an active Rotarian and founder member of Rotary Club of Madras Next Gen. He is a member of the Madras Gymkhana Club, Madras Cricket Club, Presidency Club, Mylapore Club, Cosmopolitan Club, God Financial Club, and SVS Club. And with these few words, the eminent faculty of the day, C.A. Abhishek Murali, he is the son of our very eminent, vibrant, and well-known chartered accountant, our very dear C.A. B. Murali sir, present before you for the current technical session. Thank you.
Thank you so much for such a lovely introduction, C.A. Reggie sir. Really, I feel so touched with such a wonderful introduction that you have given me. I hope I live up to the expectations. I wish I could take Reggie sir wherever I go. Such a lovely introduction he has given me. It'd be nice to be introduced like that anywhere. Of course, on the lighter sets, I'd like to thank C.A. Jayaprakash sir of Kannur branch who has invited me for this program. I'm privileged to be the first speaker or the inaugural speaker of the very landmark webinar sessions of the Kannur branch. As you're all aware, this lockdown has been quite challenging for many of us. We have not been used to being indoors for such a long period of time. So naturally, you tend to get a little out of touch with work, out of touch with your day-to-day routines, and out of touch with the knowledge elements. So webinars like this will play a long way in empowering you. And maybe over the next few months also, the after effects of this lockdown may be felt. So gathering in large public together may be reduced. So this webinar is here to stay. It is a great way to be in touch and reach an audience beyond just that local place. So I first of all congratulate the Kannur branch on taking up this initiative of launching webinar series. Without further ado, I'd like to proceed to the topic in hand. And today's session, as you must be aware, so I need to share the screen. Will you be able to allow me to share my screen? So today's topic, till the screen sharing is enabled, I will share the words with you. Is that Vivad Se Vishwas scheme is what I will be speaking about. Now, when you talk about Vivad Se Vishwas, you must be aware this is a new scheme which was introduced by the Honorable Finance Minister in the latest Finance Act, that is the Finance Budget presented on 1st of February. The Honorable Finance Minister announced this scheme. Now, what is the scheme? How is it going to benefit us? And why did they introduce the scheme? How can I use it optimally to be helpful for all of my clients and maybe in my professional practice? Let us first of all understand why this scheme was introduced. When you take any sort of litigation in India, I think my screen is shared. So it is fine. Yes, thank you. When you take litigation in India, we are all well aware of the notion that maybe the litigation goes on for a very, very long time. It is almost endless, the litigation, and it goes on for multiple years. Being a person who specializes in appeals, I can tell you that some cases it does take a very long time. And what happens in income tax appeals, very often you will find assessment order is passed. I will go to CIT appeals, though there some hearings will happen, maybe 6-7 hearings. He will give a remand report. It will go back to the assessing officer. Again, it will come back to that person. You will submit a response. If that CIT appeals gets transferred, then new person will come. Again, that process will start from the scratch. Finally, they will pass the order. You will go on appeal to the ITAT. Go all the way to the ITAT. And in ITAT also similarly 5-6 hearings will happen. What they will do, they will say, okay, we agree, but let it be re-examined by the assessing officer. So they will set it aside back to be assessed afresh to the assessing officer. Assessing officer, in very rare situations, unless they have directions, they will be brave enough, even if it's a new officer, to say, yes, I accept whatever you are saying. I will delete the addition. Most likely they will simply confirm the addition, and again you will go on that cycle. CIT appeals, ITAT, repeatedly this will be happening. So by the time the matter attains any sort of finality, more than 6 or 7 years has elapsed. When this happens, it's very, very sad to find in most cases in the 6-7 years, the interest amount under section 234 ABC itself will be almost equal to the value of the tax. Your quantum and your interest will almost be equal to each other. And not only that, after you pay that interest along with the quantum, you are going to be blessed with something called penalty. After penalty, you are going to be blessed with prosecution also in some cases. And all this over a span of 6 or 7 years. Not only that, you are paying tax, you are paying quantum, you may have to pay penalty, you may have to face the prosecution issues, you have to pay the appeal fees at each stage, you have to pay for your lawyer or chartered accountant who appears for you also. So there is a significant outflow in terms of what the assessee has to face, and is very uncertain what is going to happen to the end product. With this background, I think the Honorable Finance Minister and the CBDT, they have been in discussion for a very long time. They want to reduce the litigation that is happening in the country. And they want everybody to start off on a clean slate, You are all aware, now you have e-assessment. In the latest budget, e-appeal was also introduced. So you can see gradually there is a shift to digitization and a shift to finish every process faster than what was being done before. So this scheme, Vivad Se Vishwas scheme, will help enable people start off with a clean slate. You don't have to worry about what was there in the past. Come off under the scheme, enjoy the benefits of the scheme, start off on a clean slate. So what do they mean? Now, this is the broad objectives of the scheme. As I already discussed, they want to reduce the litigation. They want to save time, energy, and resources, not only for the assessee, but for the government also. Whenever you are appearing, somebody has to appear against you from the government side. So equally, all of those hearings, they will be having someone there who they have to pay for, or that person has to come and appear. So they want to reduce that also. And the third, the most obvious and important one, they have to generate some revenue for the income tax also. So let's go straight away into eligibility of the scheme. How do you know if you are eligible for the scheme or not? The first basic criteria they had, if any appeal or writ or SLP is pending before the appellate authorities, that is CIT appeals, ITAT, High Court or Supreme Court. If appeal is pending before any of these authorities as on 31st January 2020, then you are straight away eligible for the scheme. So when I say pending, that means it is posted for hearing, or you have submitted the documents and you're waiting for it to get posted for hearing before 31st January 2020. You could have posted it 10 years back, 15 years back, 20 years back. They are not saying any time limits, except as on 31st January 2020, that appeal should be pending. It should not have attained finality. Appeal should be pending at some level, at whatever level. Then many people asked the question, this was the original act as they envisaged it, that's what they said. Then many people came and asked, they said, on 30th January, I have got an order. On 30th January 2020, I have received an assessment order. I want to go on appeal. Naturally, I will go on appeal. But your budget you announced on 1st February, you are telling me cutoff is 31st January. In one day, I could not have filed the appeal, but I still have the intention to file the appeal. So what the government did, the CBDT issued a FAQ where more than 50 questions they answered. In that FAQ, they very specifically said, where in cases the time for appeal, filing your appeal has not expired, you still have the time to file your appeal. Then in that case, on 31st January 2020, if the time to file is still there, then that also you can come under the scheme. So what does that mean? If you received an order on 25th of January, or you received an order 30th January, and you still have time to file the appeal, then you can. You have to remember what is the time for filing appeal. If you are filing an appeal to the CIT appeals, you have to file the appeal within 30 days from the date of receiving the order. From 30 days from the date I get the assessment order, I need to file the appeal before CIT appeals. So if I've got it within 30 days, the 31st January, 30 days before that. So ideally by 1st January, if I receive that order, that from that date onwards, it is okay for me. If it is to the ITAT, if you are going on appeal to the ITAT, then 60 days from the date of the order of the CIT appeals, you have time. So 60 days you have when it's the ITAT. And of course, if you're going to the High Court, it is 90 days. Or if you are having a writ, there are certain other conditions, you should have already filed the writ. So this is a beneficial provision that they brought out, saying that as on 31st Jan 2020, if you have time to file the appeal, even though you have not filed, that is also okay. You are eligible for the scheme. Next is a revision under section 264. You may have filed a petition for revision under section 264 before the administrative commissioner or the principal commissioner, wherever you are located. In these cases, they said, if that order goes against you, or they do not accept your revision under 264, then in that case, whatever demand you have to pay, you pay that, you can come off under the scheme. You don't have to pay the interest on it. You can enjoy the benefits of the scheme, is what the Act says. Now, two very important points here. There are such cases under section 132 or 132A. Earlier, before the FAQs and clarifications came out, the income tax very categorically held no such cases will be included in the scheme. If you have a search, then you will not be included in the scheme. Later on, they clarified, even if you are searched under section 132 or 132A, where the demand is less than rupees 5 crore, then you are eligible to come under the scheme. But wait a minute. When I say 5 crore, what do I mean? You and I are both aware, in such cases, there's a requirement for them to reopen 6 years plus the current year. So totally 7 years of assessment will be involved minimum in a such case. So when 7 years are involved, are they telling me 5 crores in aggregate across 7 years? Or is it for each year? FAQ have clarified. Demand, it is not the addition where the tax demanded is less than rupees 5 crore per year. For each of those 7 years, you can see for each year, if your tax demand is less than 5 crores, then you are eligible for the scheme. You can very much enjoy the benefit of this scheme. It's a very, very useful condition. The next point is where any appeal or writ is filed by the department. Then also you can come under the scheme. Some of you might think, I've already won the case. They have only gone on appeal. No, why should I come? Why should I take this scheme? I won the case, it is in my favor. They have to prove at whatever stage they are going. It's okay. I don't want to come under the scheme. But again, I must stop you here. The reason is, let us take a situation where, like a penny stock issue or some other complex issue where the case is strongly against you. But for some reason, whatever reason, you have managed to win it at CIT appeals level or at the ITAT level. Now the department have gone on appeal against that order. Let's assume in a scenario, let's take a penny stock issue. I have a penny stock issue. For whatever reason, I've managed to win the case at the CIT appeals level. Now the assessing officer, he has gone on appeal against the CIT appeals order to the ITAT. He has gone on appeal. I have got a favorable order. I don't need anything, but he has gone on appeal. I am confident I won the case, I can win it. But you see the track record of the penny stock cases at the ITAT. If it is against you, the penny stock cases, the track record is against you, then even if the department is the one who goes on appeal, then the likelihood that you will lose the case is much higher at the ITAT level. So in those cases where the risk of you losing a case at the appellate level is higher, then you can come under the scheme with a very, very beneficial condition. I will explain that shortly. Before I get into the terms of payment, let us first understand that if we come under the scheme, what are the benefits that I am eligible for? The first and most important one is when you come under the scheme, you get a complete waiver of interest under section 234 ABC and a waiver of the penalty to be imposed under the act. As I told you, in many of the cases that you are handling, for 6 years, 7 years, it would have been reopened after 4 years, reopened after 6 years. In all of these cases, the interest itself for you will add up and be a very, very high amount, more than 60-70% of the quantum. What they are saying now, you simply pay the tax. You don't pay the interest. That also is enough. You pay 100% of the tax as per the assessment order. We are happy. You come off under the scheme. We will not pursue. We will waive with penalty also. Even though it may be an obvious case, penny stock, hawala, think whatever you want. They are saying you come under the scheme. We will not impose any penalty also on you. Not only that, they are saying we will not impose any prosecution also on you. No matter how blatantly obvious the case may be, if you are eligible for the scheme, you opt for the scheme, we will not go for prosecution also on you. So no jail term, nothing, no compounding, you don't have to worry about anything. The third and most important comfort that they are saying is that there will be no further pursuit from the department side. They will not reopen the case under 147 or 148. They will not go for rectification under 154. They will not go for revision under section 263. So department are saying when you come under the scheme, that year you have got an immunity. You are inside a bubble. Nobody can come and burst that bubble. You can float inside that bubble for however long that you want. Nobody can do anything. So when you come under the scheme, these are the sort of guarantees the department are giving you. So now that you know the benefits, there are certain exclusions also. So I told you who and all is eligible for the scheme. Let us understand who is not eligible for the scheme also. As I said in the eligibility criteria, where such cases under 132 or 132A are less than 5 crores, you are eligible. Therefore, if it is more than 5 crores per year, naturally, you are not eligible for the scheme. Prosecution cases where the prosecution has already been filed. If the prosecution has been initiated and has been filed by the department, that means it is no longer in the control of income tax. It has gone to the High Court. It will be taking its own course of law under the IPC. So in these cases, you are not eligible for the scheme. And the third one is where you have any cases relating to foreign income and assets, unlawful activities, PMLA, Binami transactions, coffee posa. Basically, they are saying if it is all illegal activities like money laundering activities or IPC activities, in these cases, you will not be eligible for the scheme because it is illegal action. It is not something of an income tax act nature. It is of something criminal in nature. That's what they are trying to say. So in those cases, you are excluded from the scheme. So what are the amounts that we need to be paying to enjoy the scheme? If you see this table here, you will be able to see what are the amounts payable. There are a few important points that I need to convey over here. A few important points. Where a regular appeal is filed, normal appeal, no complexity, not search case, anything. In those cases, disputed tax alone if you pay is enough. I will explain what each of these terms are in the next slides. But all you have to note is a regular appeal if you are filed a non-such case, then if you pay the disputed tax without the interest under section 234 ABC, that itself is enough. Such cases under section 132 or 132A, where it is less than rupees 5 crores, you have to pay disputed tax as per the assessment order without the interest 234 ABC plus an additional 25%. For such cases, they want excess a little more. They're saying you give us plus 25%, we are happy. Quantum plus 25%. That's what they're saying. In normal cases, give the quantum amount without interest. Such cases under 132, 132A, quantum amount plus 25%. Now, here's an important point to note. If you have noticed repeatedly where I have said such cases, I have specifically said such cases under section 132 and 132A. Suppose there has been a raid case back in the day when you had block assessment under 148, 158 BC or 158 BD, where it is still pending for you. Block assessment cases which are still pending. These are still search cases, but they don't come under this 132, 132A. Does that mean that they are excluded? You cannot take the benefit? No. The Act only talks about 132, 132A when they talk about such cases. So if you have any block assessment case pending, you can enjoy the first category as if you pay the disputed tax alone enough. You do not have to pay the interest. So you can imagine your block assessment cases more than 20 years old, 30 years old. In fact, that is one case that I am handling. The raid was happened in 1999. So it has been such a long time, 21 years. So the interest itself in the assessee's case has gone 3 or 4 times more than the tax payable, more than the quantum. The interest has gone 3 times more than the quantum. So for him, the entire interest is now going to be waived. You have to pay only the tax amount, which he has already paid. So it's a huge relief. You don't have to pay 125% like in such cases under 132 and 132A. It's now enough if you pay 100%. So big benefit where any old block assessment cases are still pending. Now the next point, where a department appeal is pending. Where a department appeal is pending. As I gave you an example, you won the case at the CIT appeals level. Department have gone on appeal against that to the ITAT. In those cases, if you want to come under the scheme, how much do you have to pay? They are saying you pay 50% of the tax enough. Let's take a penny stock case again. Very obviously the case may be against you, but you still may have won it at the CIT appeals level. Now the department have gone on appeal. What they are saying, maybe the case is very obviously against you. Despite that, you pay 50% of whatever the assessment order stated. 50% of the quantum, no interest also. You pay 50% of that, you come under the scheme, you get immunity. That is in the cases of disputed tax. What if you have an appeal against a penalty? What if you have an appeal against interest? When I say interest here, I am not talking about 234 ABC. I am talking about interest, other interest in the Income Tax Act. For example, interest may be levied by a tax recovery officer. Now you can go on appeal against that interest. So when you go on appeal against that disputed interest, that also you can come under the scheme. You may have a penalty that is pending. You may have gone on appeal against the penalty. In those cases also you can come under the scheme. So in cases relating to disputed interest or penalty or any other fee under the Act, if the assessee has filed the appeal, 25% of whatever is the disputed sum, if you pay it, is enough. So 1/4 of the total value, 25%, if you pay it, is enough. And suppose you have won a penalty case at the CIT appeals level against which the department have gone on appeal, then you pay 12.5% of the disputed sum, more than enough. You don't have to pay more, half. So whenever there's a department appeal, you pay 50% of whatever is the amount you would have paid if you had lost the case. If the department have gone on appeal, you pay 50% of the disputed sum, enough. If you are going on appeal, you pay 100%, or in such cases, you pay 125%. If it is penalty or interest, you have to pay 25% of the disputed sum. So now let us talk about the key terms. In the previous slide, we talked about disputed tax, disputed interest, disputed penalty. What do these mean? If you read the Vivad Se Vishwas Act, you will find one common term over there. Where the assessee has any tax arrears due to the department. What do they mean by tax arrears? Tax arrears can be broken up into three things: disputed tax, penalty on such disputed tax, and interest charged or chargeable on disputed tax. This interest, whenever I'm saying here, I am not talking about 234 ABC. How can you be sure of that? You don't have to simply take my word for it. Let us look at the definition of disputed tax under the Act. What does it say? Disputed tax refers to the income tax, including surcharge and cess. It does not include your interest under 234 ABC. So disputed tax under this Act does not include your interest under 234 ABC, because the whole benefit of the Act is they are waiving it. They are waiving 234 ABC and they are giving you immunity. So now you may ask a question. How do I determine what is the amount payable by me in each circumstance or in each scenario? Where the appeal is pending, it is simple amount payable where the case is decided against me. Where the order is passed, but the time for appeal has not expired. In the scenario where I'm getting the order on 28th January, on 1st February, this is announced, this scheme. I haven't filed an appeal, but now I am going to file an appeal. How do I know what amount I have to pay? Whatever as per the assessment order, whatever is determined as per the assessment order, I have to pay that quantum amount. Without the interest, it is enough. Where application for revision under section 264 is pending before a principal commissioner, then in that case, if I lose that petition, then whatever additional tax I need to pay, that is the disputed tax. If I pay that, then I can take the benefits of 264. Let us come to disputed interest. As I told you, disputed interest does not include 234 ABC. It is any other interest other than that. So if you have filed an appeal against that any other interest, whatever interest it may be, in whatever form, then you can take the benefit of that under this scheme. So when they say disputed interest, they mean any interest other than 234 ABC. And disputed penalty is very straightforward. Whatever amount is levied by the department as a penalty that is payable by you, then you will come under the disputed penalty definition. Now, what is the procedure for opt for the scheme? You have decided, let me go for the scheme. How do I go for the scheme? How do I select the scheme? How do I go about it procedurally? Now, many of you will be aware that when you log into the income tax portal now, you have one new tab that comes in the e-filing portal. On the right-hand side corner, you will find a tab called Vivad Se Vishwas. It will be called Vivad Se Vishwas. This is the next page you can see here in the image on the top left corner. This is a screenshot of the e-filing portal. And you have this new tab called Vivad Se Vishwas. It is next to your profile settings. If you click the drop down, you can select and submit your Vivad Se Vishwas forms. So here, the procedure is you have to click that submit the forms and you have to fill out a declaration called form number 1 and form number 2. Both are integrated into the same page. you have to file these two forms simultaneously. You will file it. And once you file it, you will get an acknowledgement that these two forms are filed, that your declaration is filed. Once you file that declaration, a grant of a certificate determining the amount payable. There will be a certificate granted to you by someone called the designated authority. So under the scheme, the department will have someone called a designated authority or a DA. Normally it will be a joint commissioner or above. And this person, he is the deciding authority of how you come under the scheme. So he will examine your eligibility, and he will most importantly examine whether the amount is correct or not. Let's take a scenario. Let's take a scenario where the assessment order amount is 10 lakhs. When you are filling out your declaration, you write 1 lakh and you submit it. Department is not going to straight away accept it. They will do their own hearing. They will do their own research. They will first go through all the documents that you have on their file, and then they will see how he's put 1 lakh. He should have put 10 lakhs. So he'll give you a chance for hearing or explaining why you put 1 lakh, whether it's a mistake or whether you have made a typographical error or you have any reason why you have said 1 lakh. And if they agree with the reason, then they may revise their amount. Or if you agree with the reason, you can pay on 10 lakhs. So they have to issue this designated authority within 15 days from filing your declaration. He will determine your eligibility and the amount payable under the scheme. And he will issue what is the amount payable under something called the Form 3. So he will say, you have to pay 10 lakhs. Here is Form 3. Now, once you get that Form 3, you have something very important to do. You had an appeal that was pending somewhere before some authority, either CIT, ITAT, High Court, Supreme Court, wherever. So what they are saying is you have to withdraw that appeal. So once you withdraw that appeal, and once you pay the amount of tax as determined in that Form 3, you have to submit both in something called a Form 4. This is also, everything is an online form. All of this is going to be online, except your withdrawal of appeal before the High Court and Supreme Court. In those two cases alone, you have to manually go and submit the withdrawal. Whereas CIT appeals and ITAT, it is considered to be a deemed withdrawal. Once you come into the scheme itself, there is going to be a deemed withdrawal. So the assessee has to pay the tax and furnish this withdrawal both in form number 4. Once you submit that, your designated authority, he'll go through that entire form, and finally he'll give you an acknowledgement. Basically, he is giving you a certificate saying that you have opted for the scheme, you are eligible for the scheme, therefore you will be entitled to all the benefits of the scheme. This is a screenshot as I showed you earlier. On the top left corner, you can see this is the e-filing portal, how the Vivad Se Vishwas tab is there, how you can select and submit the form. The bottom right corner, that is the form itself. This is how the form will look. You will have multiple schedules, like how you file your income tax returns. You will have part A, part B, part C, like that. You have to fill up each with a declaration. And once you submit that, it will be submitted with the acknowledgement number. So what are some key points to note here? What are the key points to note? Now, the first important point, main point, in a scenario where you've gone on appeal to the ITAT, then your CIT appeals, once you finish the CIT appeals, 100% of your tax becomes due. Your entire tax you should have paid along with your interest, unless you have got a stay from the ITAT. Let's assume 70% of the cases, they do not get the stay. So they have to pay the tax plus interest. So in some of the cases that you are handling, you have paid the tax plus interest. Later on, the scheme comes. What is the scheme saying? You don't have to pay interest, you pay the tax enough. So you are saying, I have already paid my tax. I've paid the interest also. So I can take the benefit of the scheme. But I have paid the interest, I have paid more than what I should pay. I should have paid 100. I have paid 116. What can I do? Can I take the benefit of that 60 back? What the department have very magnanimously said is, where you have paid excess, I should have paid 100 tax, interest under 234 ABC is 60. I have already paid that. They are saying we will refund the 60 rupees to you. So if you have paid excess tax beyond what you should actually pay under the scheme, you can take the excess as a refund. Next, what if there are multiple grounds? take a scenario where there are 7 additions made in my assessee's case. 5 additions are against me. I know that I cannot win. So I'll definitely come under the scheme. It is more beneficial for me. However, 2 additions, they are very obviously wrong. I know if I go on appeal, easily I'll win those 2 cases. Those 2 additions I will win. So questions has been asked. Can I choose to go for the scheme on the 5 additions that are against me? Whatever is in favor, I will go on appeal against that. So I'll select the scheme for those 5 additions. The 2 additions which are in which I can easily win, I'll go on appeal against that. So now the important condition as far as this is concerned is that where multiple grounds are there in one assessment year, then you cannot cherry pick. You cannot choose these 5 I will win, so I'll go on appeal. These 2 I will lose, so I will go for the scheme. You cannot do that. They are saying either you choose to go on appeal or you choose to come under the scheme. Even if there's any addition that is obviously against you, we do not care. You have to choose whether you want the scheme or whether you want to go on appeal. You cannot have best of the both worlds. As I already said, the most important thing is that the filing of declaration does not set a precedent. What do I mean by set a precedent? Suppose I've gone for the scheme for this year. The same addition comes up 3 years later. The same issue, same addition. Department are saying that, no, I'm going to make the addition. I don't have to give you a hearing. When Vivad scheme came out, you opted for that scheme. So clearly you are wrong. So I'm going to straight away make the addition. They are saying that the department can no longer do that, because when you file a declaration under the scheme, you are not setting a precedent. You are conceding. You are saying that I want to buy peace. What the department are doing? Department are also buying peace in the same process as per the scheme. So both the assessee and the department, both of you are conceding your tax position. That is what the act says. You both are conceding your tax position. So therefore, this does not set a precedent. So department cannot come and say that that year you came under the scheme, that means you have done something wrong. Similarly, you can also not say, see, that year I came under the scheme, you accepted it. So this year also you should accept that it is correct. You cannot, neither of you can take it as a precedent. So no department nor the assessee can take it as a precedent. Let us quickly cover the frequently asked questions. As the chairman informed me, we will try and wrap up the program faster so that we can take some questions before we wrap up. I know it is the Ramzan season, so he has advised me that we will try to not extend for too long. Definitely, we will wrap up as soon as possible. So we will start touch with the frequently asked questions, and maybe during the meantime, if anybody had any questions, you can put it in the chat box also, so that as soon as the session is over, we can take up the questions. So let us start with the frequently asked questions. The first one, I have already discussed it. In such cases, the 5 crore limit, the 5 crore tax effect is for each assessment year. You can examine each assessment year. You don't have to aggregate it. The next point, what if the assessment has been set aside by the appellate authorities? Can the scheme be availed? Can the scheme be availed? Let me take a scenario. I'll explain it with an example. You have gone all the way to the ITAT. What have the ITAT said? ITAT has said, yes, we agree with you, but we are not taking a decision. Let it be examined afresh by the assessing officer. I am sending it back to the assessing officer. So it has come back to the AO. Correctly, it came on 30th of January, the set aside order has come. On 31st January, this scheme is announced. So you would have been thinking, if I took an adjournment, at least I could have taken the benefit of the scheme. Now it has come back to the assessing officer. Can I take the benefit of the scheme? Because technically no appeal is pending. I don't have any time for filing appeal also. And I don't have any appeal pending also, because now it is pending before the assessing officer. So in the FAQs, the department have clarified where the assessment has been set aside to give a proper opportunity to the assessee, then the assessee is eligible for the scheme. If it has been set aside to the assessing officer for giving a proper opportunity or for re-examining the case afresh, then the assessee can still come under the scheme. Where quantum and penalty is pending, can the assessee apply scheme only for the penalty. Let us take a scenario. There has been an addition in my case on, let's say, a capital gains issue. So they have made an addition, quantum amount have gone on dispute. At the same time, penalty also they have levied. Penalty also they have levied. Let's assume 100% they have levied. On that also I've gone on appeal. I've gone on appeal against the penalty also. Now on the penalty appeal, I am telling, I want to fight. What do I want to fight? I want to fight the penalty appeal. What I will do is I'll go for the quantum alone under the scheme. I'll go for the quantum under the scheme. I will fight the penalty. But how is your penalty formed? The very basis for your penalty itself is from the quantum, that is your assessment order. You cannot de-link the two. So what they are saying under this is, if you decide to go on the quantum under the scheme, then naturally penalty also you have to go under the scheme. If you are going in the quantum, if you are going against the assessment order, then penalty also you must come under the scheme. What if I want to go into the scheme for the penalty only? I will still continue to fight out. I'll continue to fight out the quantum. In that case also, they are saying, when you have, they are both side by side. Unless you say, I am not going to fight for the quantum. Penalty alone is pending. Quantum has been decided. I have accepted it. I'm paying the tax. But now they have levied a penalty on me. For that alone, I'm coming into the scheme. Then you can do that. But where both quantum and penalty are pending, you must come under the scheme for both. You cannot choose to come only for one, because they both are linked to each other. Now, many people have asked me this question. What if I have got an assessment order? That I still have time to file the appeal? You are all aware, on 31st December, that was the time barring date. 31st December 2019 was time barring date. So many of you would have got assessment orders around that time, maybe 31st December or first week of January, etc. So in many of these cases, time is there to file the appeal, or let's assume you have filed the appeal also. But on scrutinizing the assessment order, it comes to light that there are arithmetical errors. He should have added 1 lakh, but while typing, the gentleman has written 10 lakhs. So what has happened? Your demand is excessive. So if you come under the scheme, you have to pay the disputed tax on that 10 lakhs addition, not the 1 lakh addition. So can I file for a rectification? Because when I'm filing a rectification, I get a fresh assessment order. But I'm already on appeal against the earlier assessment order, or I have time for that earlier assessment order. So under the fresh assessment order, do I have to go under the scheme? I will not be eligible. So what happens in cases of rectification? Now the department have clarified that where you can file a rectification for the old assessment order, you can reckon it as if it was filed on the old date. Even if the rectification comes today, I'm filing for a rectification I'm getting today, but I have already filed my appeal before 31st January, or I had the time to file my appeal on 31st January. It is okay. I am still eligible for the scheme. So I can correct it to 1 lakh. I can correct from 10 lakhs. I can change it to 1 lakh, get an immediate rectification order. In fact, all assessing officers, they are waiting. If you go to them and tell that there's a rectification, please help me. They're waiting to correct, because they want more people to come into the scheme. So you go meet them, get into the scheme, and try to take the benefit of the rectified assessment order. Is waiver of interest application considered under the scheme? You may be aware that there is a provision for interest waiver where you can apply to the DGIT or principal CIT. You can apply for a waiver of interest, even 234 ABC interest, you may apply. They have some 3-4 conditions where you must have a just cause, financially you must be able to prove that you are unable to pay it, and you have cooperated with the income tax. If you satisfy all these conditions, you can make an application for waiver of interest. Is this waiver of interest application covered as a hearing? Department have clarified, interest waiver is not an appeal. Interest waiver does not constitute an appeal. It does not constitute even arbitration. Therefore, you cannot come under this scheme. You cannot take the benefit of this scheme. Next point. Same assessment year where the appeal is pending before the ITAT. It has been reopened under section 147. And now I have gone on appeal against that 147 order also before the CIT appeals. How to apply for the scheme? So it's an interesting scenario where in one assessment year, some addition is made, maybe in scrutiny. I've gone on appeal against that and my appeal is pending before the ITAT. While this is so, the same assessment year, the Housing House has reopened on a different issue, And now I've gone on appeal against that order also to the CIT appeals. So for the same assessment year, 2 appeals were pending. One before the ITAT on some other issue, one before the CIT appeals on some other issue. I want to come under the scheme. Can I apply for the scheme separately for each appeal? Or do I have to do it together? No, the appellant at this time, when you have such a situation, you have the option to settle both of the appeals or either of the appeals wherever you want. If you want to settle both of the appeals in the same application, one form is enough. In one declaration form itself, you can do it. Suppose you say, no, that CIT appeals I will settle, but that ITAT old matter I want to continue fighting. Then you can continue fighting. Only one matter you can settle, it is adequate. And last most important point, can an appeal be filed against an order under the scheme? You have chosen to come under the scheme. You have decided, I want to go under the Vivad Se Vishwas scheme. You have complied with everything that needs to be complied with. Finally, they pass that certificate. They give you that order. You decide saying that, yes, I am coming under the scheme. You take the benefits, everything. The day after you get that order, you get that immunity, you are filing an appeal to the High Court. You are filing an appeal against that order. No, there's a mistake they made. So they have clarified currently as it stands, they say that you cannot go on appeal against the order of the designated authority under this act. Once they pass that certificate, once they pass that order, that is final and that will only stand. So you will not have an opportunity to go on appeal. But whether this is acceptable in the principles of justice, we don't know, because technically speaking, you can go on a writ against anything. So no way can a law be brought saying that you cannot go on appeal against this no matter what happens. So therefore, in my opinion, you may not have the opportunity to go on a tax case appeal against it, but writ you can still go on it. Constitutionally, you still have the power to go on appeal against whatever order, be it Vivad Se Vishwas or any other order also under the Act. You have the right to go on appeal against that. I don't think the Act can restrict that. But as it stands, we have to go by whatever the FAQs and the Act says. It says that you do not have a right to appeal against an order under this. So this is the overall scheme of the Vivad Se Vishwas Act. I am sure that this would have been an interesting listen. So many of you may have certain questions that you want to share, or maybe certain points of discussion that you want to share about it. I welcome you to please do ask questions. I thank the Kannur branch for giving me this opportunity to discuss this very important topic. And anyone who has appeals which are pending, I request you to try and take the most benefit of this scheme. It's a very good scheme. Waiver of the interest is something which is very, very hugely beneficial to almost all assessees. So unless, even if you have a case where you have a 5% or 10% doubt on winning the case, it is better you try to come under the scheme and take the benefit of the waiver of interest, penalty, prosecution, etc. So thank you once again to all of you for listening and joining in. And thank you, the Kannur branch, for giving me the opportunity to address all the members who are watching today.
Thank you very much, Abhishek sir, for your nice presentation on this Vivad Se Vishwas scheme. And friends, initially I have mentioned the faculty that as far as possible, we should have to address the queries of the viewers, because I know that we have already viewed so many presentations by other faculties also. So somewhat what will be the procedure, theoretical aspects and everything, we people very well know. But maybe a little bit of confusion and a clarification required in various areas. For that, I prefer our faculty to address the maximum questions to clarify whatever may be the confusion in this regard. Meanwhile, I feel that if you could some more analyze the FAQ, that is the latest FAQ circular number 9. Some little bit point, if you have that FAQs with you, could you please clarify in certain points regarding compared to the original circular, that is circular number 7, which was subsequently revised with certain amendments, etc., etc.
Sir, I think the new FAQ, actually nothing major has come from it. In fact, most of the amendments there, they have said where it used to say finance bill, or rather the Vivad Se Vishwas bill, it will now be considered to be act. I think almost only 9 or 10 questions were there in the new FAQ. It was 2 pages or 3 pages long. It was just more a matter of procedure, to the point where if you look on the website, look on the e-filing portal itself,
Technical issues. Hello. Some technical issues are there. Okay. 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 Tell me. Is it okay?
His audio is not.
Okay. 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 Right. Sorry.
Yes, sorry.
Tell me, sir.
Any other question is there, sir?
So that is there in the chat box. Could you?
No, what happened is for me, suddenly it closed. So I'm not able to see.
Then I will read whatever maybe the questions.
If you can just read out, sir. Yes.
Yeah. I will just read what are the questions
Yes.
that is in the chat box. Sir, one question is that could you please repeat the disputed interest and penalty?
Sure. Now, disputed interest, as I told you, the definition, if you see under the Act, they will take such interest charged or chargeable on the disputed tax. Such interest charged or chargeable on disputed tax, and where an appeal is filed on such interest amount, that is defined as disputed interest. You may ask, interest charged or chargeable on disputed tax sounds like 234 ABC, but that is not 234 ABC. It is other interest, because any interest that is levied under the Act, they have to levy it on something, no? Whether it is 1% per month or 3% per month or whatever percentage they are saying, that has to be levied on a certain amount. That amount is only disputed tax. That is why the reference is made to disputed tax. So 234 ABC is not included in disputed tax. The entire scheme purpose is to waive 234 ABC. That is the cream. The cream of this entire Vivad Se Vishwas Act is the waiver of the interest. Everything else is secondary. Even the waiving of the prosecution penalty and all is secondary. The primary benefit of it is waiver of 234 interest.
Another question is, could you please explain whether refund can be applied in the normal course or there is a separate procedure for the refund application?
So this is the interesting question. It's a good question. The section is called Vivad Se Vishwas, but in some aspects like this, it may lead to Vivad Se more Vivad only, because they have not given enough clarity how the interest will work. In fact, I had organized a session with the Principal Chief Commissioner for the Tamil Nadu region just before the lockdown. That was the last meeting we organized at SARC. It was attended huge numbers. And I'd say at least 60% of the participants repeatedly are asking this about refunds, how we will get the refund, whether they will adjust the refund against any due. Suppose old refunds are pending. Suppose old dues are pending, how CPC adjusts current year refund, they will adjust against the old dues. No, like that we were saying, if refund is due to me under the scheme, why don't you adjust that against my other dues? All that many people were asking. Department could not give clarity on the matter. Naturally, I think the procedure is yet to be codified, but they have given the promise that they will refund the money. Maybe it will come tomorrow, or maybe it will come after 3 years. We don't know, but legally you are entitled to the refund.
Thank you, sir. Thank you. Another question is the The appeal was filed belatedly along with a condonation petition. What is the status on such appeals?
Sir, if your appeal is filed with the condemnation petition and both are pending as on 31st January, okay. After the scheme comes, you cannot file with a condemnation petition saying, please put me under the scheme. No, you cannot do that. If already, let's assume my appeal was delayed by 10 days or by 1 year, I have appeared on cases, I have got condemnation of delay where there's been 10 years, 12 years also. But this appeal along with the condemnation petition should have been pending before an authority on 31st January. Nobody is checking to see whether it's 1 day delay, 10 years delay and all. As long as it is filed before you knew this act is coming into existence, that is enough. It should be pending. But suppose act has been announced on 1st February. On 2nd February, you are filing an appeal along with the condemnation. Then that will not be eligible for the scheme.
Fine, thank you. And again, another question is there, for filing a form, digital signature is required or not?
Yes, sir. Digital signature or EVC. Suppose your person is subject to tax audit, or it is a company or a partnership firm, then digital signature is required. If it is an individual, OTP itself is enough, sir. That Aadhaar OTP itself you can do.
Right, right. Another one is, can you throw some statistics on which are the common issues that assessees have taken up largely in the scheme for buying peace?
It's an interesting question, because when I speak on income tax appeals, I repeatedly share the story. You know, I had a case that came to me where this assessee, he had an issue before the assessing officer, and the assessing officer was relatively, they gave him a good assessment order, so to speak, favorable assessment order, but still there was an addition. They both came to understanding saying that, sir, I will not go on appeal. I will not go on appeal. I will pay the entire tax. You please don't levy penalty on me. You don't levy penalty on me. So this assessing officer and the assessee, they have whatever, I don't know how, they have come to that understanding. So assessee has not filed the appeal. It has been more than 5 months gone since the assessment order has been passed. Suddenly what happens is, assessing officer got transferred. New assessing officer has come into place. He is seeing all the old cases that are pending. So he said, take this case. It says penalty will be initiated separately, but we have not initiated penalty. Immediately initiate the penalty now. So they initiated the penalty in that case. And unfortunately for the assessee, what happened? Time to file appeal against the quantum has expired. And if you go on appeal against the penalty, what is the first thing the appellate commissioner will ask? They will say, what happened on your quantum appeal? If you say, sir, I didn't go on appeal against the quantum, only penalty I am on appeal against. Immediately for them also, they get alarm bells. They'll feel something is wrong. Why you have not gone on appeal? So this assessee is telling, this case came to us when it went on appeal. So we are handling it. We've managed to get the quantum also condoned. So even though the quantum got confirmed, we were able to win the penalty case and get the penalty dismissed. But the assessee repeatedly was saying, I want to buy peace, I want to buy peace. That's why I accept, I want to buy peace. Supreme Court in one very famous decision, I think it was Magna Carta, where they held saying that department, you want to say that you want to buy peace. Department is not in the business of selling peace. So you cannot come and say buy peace. If you have a case, you sit and you fight it out. Don't try to say I want to buy peace and all. But this entire Vivad Se Vishwas scheme itself is built around the business of selling peace, buying peace only. So both you and department, it is not only the assessee who is buying peace here. Technically, even the department is also buying peace for the same assessment here. That is why you cannot go on appeal against the order of Vivad Se Vishwas. Similarly, the department also cannot reopen. They cannot do 154. They cannot revise under 263.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Again, are settlement commission cases covered under this scheme?
No, sir. If you have an appeal, that's the entire purpose of this Vivad Se Vishwas is appeal should be pending before the specified authorities. That is CIT appeals, ITAT, High Court or Supreme Court. If it is pending before any other authority, it is not considered to be an appeal pending as far as Vivad Se Vishwas scheme is concerned.
Right. Can we get relief for interest under section 230 for A, B and C by paying the whole amount of tax?
You will, sir. That is what the entire scheme is. You pay the entire tax excluding the interest itself, you can come under the scheme as long as your appeal is pending. That is the criteria.
Right. In respect of an assessment year, the assessing officer has passed an order against which appeal is before the Commissioner of Income Tax Appeals. If the assessee is opting to file under Vivad Se Vishwas scheme, assessing officer can issue notice either under section 154 or 147 of the Income Tax Act.
You are saying after the scheme order is passed?
Yes, in respect of an assessment year, the assessing officer has passed an order.
He cannot do it after the scheme order has come. But also before, generally now you will see the right from CBDT down, everybody is pushing the assessing officers to bring their assessees into this case. So maybe you would have heard about it. Your assessing officer mostly would have called you. He would have called you and said, is your assessee coming under the scheme? You request him to take the benefit of the scheme. Many people are getting these calls because they have been given instructions to try and get as many people into the scheme as possible. They want to reduce as much litigation. So in general, if you are going for the scheme, nobody will do 154 unless it is beneficial to you. Nobody will do 147. Nobody will do 263 also. You just say, I'm coming under the scheme. Everything will be put on hold till you finish coming into the scheme.
Okay. Can department file appeal against the order under the scheme?
No, they cannot, sir. I mean, though technically speaking, the Act does not say that. It's a good question because the Act, if you read the Act, it only stops the assessee from filing the appeal. It does not stop the department from going. But generally, the logic behind the scheme is neither party can go. I think it is understood, even though it is not codified. Maybe they'll come out with a clarification soon. The only challenge is whenever they want to make an amendment to this, it is not like a money bill. They cannot easily do it. It has to go through the Houses of Parliament before they make the amendment.
Very good. Now, the another question from Mahesh is that Part B allows to add multiple appeals for single assessment year. Part B allows to add multiple appeals for single assessment year.
Yes.
Whereas Schedule A to Form 1 does not allow additional appeal. So filing should be done by appeal wise or assessment year wise.
It has to be done assessment year wise. Suppose I have 2 appeals which are pending in the same assessment year. It has to be brought through in the same form. In the same form, I have to bring it out. But suppose same assessment year, 2 appeals pending. I want to go under the scheme only on 1 appeal. Then I can put only for that. I don't have to input the details of the other. You are right that the other schedule, it does not allow you to put separately for that. It's okay. You have to aggregate it and put both together.
Now, what is the procedure for filing tax payment details under Part E, where there are demands of various assessment year paid against income tax refund?
So this actually, you are right that some of those parts, Part E and all, it does not open up properly under this thing, because the whole point is it will be checked by the designated authority. So they will check any income tax refunds that have been adjusted or any earlier dues that you have paid which has not been reflected in the assessment order. All of this is a designated authority, he will examine. So the whole point, it's almost like a hearing. You can go and sit with the designated authority, or you can sit with your assessing officer and finalize the amount. And then you can file the appeal. If you have any doubts, go sit with your assessing officer, finalize all the amounts, ensure that you quantify the amounts properly, and then you file for the appeal.
Another question is that block assessment also being present to a search, whether limit of 5 crore will apply for that. Block assessment also being present to a search, whether
Sir,
limit
block
of 5
assessment,
crore.
you have no limit. That is the beauty of this entire act. They have specified the search sections. They have specified section under 132A, 132C. They have said that. Therefore, block assessments, you are eligible. You don't even have to pay. If it is a search case under 132, 132C, you have those 2 limits. 5 crore limit you have. You also have tax to pay under the scheme. You have to pay 100% of the tax plus 25%. So 125% you have to pay in such cases. But such cases under 132. So if you are under block assessment, that 5 crore limit is not there per year. Not only that, if you pay 100% of the tax enough, you don't have to pay that additional 25%. It's a beauty of the block assessment cases.
Right, thank you. Do you have a provision for condoning delay in opting for scheme?
No, sir, Kumara, sir, we do not have, we don't have the provision for condoning the delay. If you have filed it with the continuation of delay and pending on 31st January, you can come under the scheme. Otherwise, you cannot. Deepak
In
Jain,
ca-
in cases
yeah.
of set aside by ITAT, how the relief is available as there is no assessment pending. Yes, sir, you are right. There is technically no appeal pending. Assessment is pending, but there is no appeal pending. But they have said if the case is genuine, because of that, they want to allow you an opportunity to come under the scheme. If you think it is better for you to fight it off, it's come back to the assessing officer level. If you think that as an assessee or as a professional who's representing the assessee, you have a stronger case to fight the case, then you please fight the case. You don't have to come under the scheme. This is just a beneficial provision saying it has been set aside by the ITAT. If you want to take the benefit of the scheme, you can take the benefit of the scheme. Can you take a deferred payment facility in case there is no liquidity? Sir, this itself, because department does not have liquidity, they are doing the scheme. I don't think they will allow you another deferred facility. What they are saying is 15 days from the date the person issues the certificate. You are filing the declaration today. Within 15 days, he has to issue the certificate. After he issues the certificate, within 15 days, you have to pay the amount. So let me make it clear. If he issues the certificate in 3 days itself, within 15 days, you have to arrange for the money. You have to make sure that you have enough money to pay. So ensure that with your client, you keep them entertained, keep them engaged, tell them to have the funds ready. Tell them to keep the funds ready so that after the certificate comes, they cannot say, please give me 10 days time, give me 20 days time. Act does not allow that currently. Maybe they'll give a provision later, but currently there is no deferred payment facility and all.
Okay. Any more questions?
Oh, so you've covered all the questions. Excellent.
Yeah. Okay, Abhishek sir, an excellent, beautiful presentation on this scheme by the government of India. And thank you for your spending valuable time with the Kannur branch of SARCF ICA. And meanwhile, this is the first webinar by our Kannur branch, even though we have tried it later also. And we are very lucky that we have got the SARC secretary itself as the first faculty for our Kannur branch. Meanwhile, one more question is there, sir.
Yes.
Is there an option for assessing officer to? Could you please read, sir?
Is there an option for the assessing officer to reject an application even though the appeal stands to merits? Is there an option for the assessing officer to reject an appeal? The assessing officer is not going to, PK Ranganathan sir is not going to check whether it's merits or not. For this scheme, as long as you satisfy the eligibility criteria itself, they are saying you will be allowed. If you satisfy the eligibility criteria itself, you will be allowed to take the benefit of the scheme. They are not going to see whether merits is there, merits is not there, etc. If you don't have the eligibility criteria, you will be removed from the scheme.
Thank
I
you,
think
Abhishek.
there are a couple of more questions. Should I just answer that also, sir?
Yeah, definitely.
How to force 154 rectification pending before the application under the scheme? Yeah, you can take, sir. There is no restriction. 154, suppose your assessee has a 154 case, please go meet the assessing officer. They are more than happy. They will give you the rectification as soon as possible. They will give you the rectification as soon as possible. Within days, they will give it to you. So you go meet your assessing officer directly. He will give you the rectification.
So one more
Next
question is
question.
there.
After issue of certificate, if money is not paid, will there be any levy of interest? Again, like I said, Vivad se more Vivad. This is one of those questions where we don't have clarity. They are saying if they issue the certificate, you don't pay the money, then most likely you will not be eligible for the scheme again. You will lose the benefit of the scheme. As it stands, that's what it looks like. Whether they will allow you to pay with more interest, all that we don't know. Suppose your assessee does not have funds. Currently, the outer date is 30th June. So you ask them to file the application on 1st of June or something like that. Then maybe you will be allowing him to have more time to get more liquidity. Because the more you delay, of course, the lesser time that, more time the assessee will have, but lesser time department will have to process. But they are saying 15 days from issue of certificate, you have to pay it. That's the only thing. Yes, sir.
Okay. Anyway, again, once again, thanking. And I feel that all we are concerned about what will be the situation after this COVID-19. But as far as this type of scheme is coming, my opinion is we should have to encourage the stakeholders to come through this scheme so that they can go with the post-COVID session with an excellent mind and concentrate on business also. Meanwhile, in Kerala also, Kerala government has also introduced one amnesty scheme, where they are getting 100% waiver of the penalty, 100% waiver of the interest. And if you could make the payment within single installment, there is a waiver to the extent of the 60% on the arrears principal amount of the tax itself. Not 100% means not the 100% of tax it is to be paid. No, it is 40% you have to pay the principal amount of the tax. And if you are opting for the installment, then you have to go with the 50% waiver of the principal amount of the tax apart from the interest and penalty. So I feel that we should have to encourage these type of scheme so that the stakeholders will be much benefited, even though going for a lot of disputes and everything. And my request is we should not make again and again dispute on this Visa scheme also, so that the real beneficiary should not be out of this particular scheme. So thank you very much for your valuable time while spending for the Kannur branch. And we should have to meet again. And meanwhile, as a custom, I am requesting my executive member Saju to propose the vote of thanks.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Kannur branch.
Yes, please, sir. Saju?
Yeah.
Okay. Please.
Chairman of Kannur branch, C. Jay Prakash. Distinguished speaker of today's seminar, Dr. C. Abhishek Murli, Secretary, SIRC of ICI, Managing Committee members, and members of the provision. It gives me immense pleasure to propose a vote of thanks on behalf of Kannur branch of ICI. May I take this opportunity to thank our distinguished speaker, Dr. C. Abhishek Murli, Secretary of SIRC, for his excellent presentation on Vivad Se Vishwas scheme 2020. He has made a very lucid presentation of the various aspects of the scheme. Thank you very much, sir. I also take this opportunity to thank all the members who have participated in the first seminar, which is conducted on the online platform by Kannur branch. Thank you all. You have made our day. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Abhishek. Thank you.
Thank you so much, sir.
Thank you.